Hey everyone, King Kong, War of the Worlds, Batman Begins, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. All these films were released in 2005, but one of the most underrated films of 2005, one of the best action films, horror action films of 2005 was Doom, starring The Rock and Carl Urban. Now in 2019, we are getting a sequel, sort of direct-to-video movie, reminiscent of the Doom franchise based on the 1993 video game. This one is called Doom Annihilation. Essentially, the story of this film is that a research base on one of the moons of Mars has been sort of attacked and taken over by these creatures, which are attacking the facility people. A bunch of space marines are sent off to sort of help out and secure it and all this other stuff. Essentially the same story as 2005, but 2005 did it way better. Before I get into this film, let me go ahead and preface this by saying there are going to be a big spoiler alert throughout this. I'm going to be talking about spoilers throughout, mainly because there's no way that I can give my full thoughts about this movie without completely ruining about 90% of it, but hopefully it'll help you make your decision on if you want to watch it or not, if you want to hear my thoughts. But let's go ahead and start with this movie, Doom Annihilation. This movie was really, really bad. I think it was really terrible. There was no point in making it. It looked horrible. It sounded horrible. Everything sucked about this movie. Thank God it was a direct-to-video release. It's very apparent that it is a direct-to-video release because it is just that bad. Now, I'm sure when they were making this movie that they did not intend it to be this bad. I don't know if it was the writing, the directing combination, but this one is just hot garbage. I definitely don't recommend checking it out. So these are my thoughts on some of the worst things about this movie that just drove me absolutely insane. First of all, it's laughably bad. There are no stakes, there's no intensity, there's really no thing that needs to happen in this movie. They essentially take the villains from the Doom franchise, which are these creatures, these very ugly creatures that are morphing constantly, and there's various versions of these demonic things, and they decide to just make them the people at the research facility, once they're killed, into essentially blue zombies, which makes it really, really boring. There's really not a whole lot there. And then when they actually do get to the creatures, which surprise are completely different from the characters that these research scientists are being turned into, unlike the 2005 version, because they actually evolve in that movie. In this one, they have their separate blue vampires or blue zombies, and then they have the actual creatures themselves. The actual creatures themselves are actually surprisingly okay until they start sort of doing this Hadoken Kamehameha sort of fire thing out of nowhere. That made just no sense. Nothing about this movie makes sense. One of my biggest nitpicks, other than the terrible monsters, is the overall visuals. The original 2005 Doom was very dark, very dark. A lot of people complained that it was set so much in the dark that you could barely see anything. And that actually kind of added to the appeal of the action horror for me, is that you can't see a lot. You have to kind of just go with your instincts and just do the best that you can, very much like the Doom video game. However, in this one, they went the complete opposite direction of that and kind of overlit everything. They showed you a little bit too much. You could see every detail in the background, even when the power was low and the lights were off. They even go to as far as saying, oh, the power is on reserve. It's only at 2%. All the power is out for the most part. Very low power to conserve as much as possible. Then later they kind of fix the problem. I say. Because when they turn the lights on, it's basically like plugging in a nightlight in a sunroom that's in the middle of the day. There's no point to turning the lights on. They could see perfectly to begin with. I could see everything that was in the background. I could see every character's face. I could see the signs on the wall. I could read them clearly. It wasn't dark in the slightest. So there was no intensity, like I said. There was no stakes. There was no visual direction that made me feel like there was a threat or that these characters were actually in danger. They even, during the fight scenes, they're so incompetent for being space marines that they just get easily taken over and just start blasting at these creatures and just sort of, yes, that would be your reaction to a monster, possibly, but you're a space marine. Like, you've probably seen some shit. Like, why are all this all of a sudden such a big problem? And they seem like they don't know how to use their weapons, which is super ironic. Just a lot of problems. They even use a lot of the cliches, like the captain going on this mission. You know what? This is going to be my final mission. I'm going to retire. Of course, he dies. Like, obviously, they have like the big brooding guy. They have like the let's just call him the cowboy, or like the loose cannon of the group, the hothead. They did this as well in the 2005 one, but at least they tried to add some character depth. They kind of quickly gave us analysis of them, and we moved on. I couldn't honestly tell you the names or the people's faces for the most of these characters. I legitimately did not care. Whereas the 2005 one, I actually cared. These were people. Yeah, sometimes they were creepy. Sometimes they were a little bit overacted. A little bit more, I don't know what you want to call it. They had more weight to them than whatever this was. This one just felt like that they were kind of like paper cutouts of people. But hopefully they got a good check out of it. I mean, this movie was really frustrating because based on the trailer, I was actually really excited for it. And surprisingly, one of the best highlights of the movie was the visual effects. Not necessarily towards the end. I feel like they kind of clearly ran out of budget at that point. But in the beginning, there's a lot, during especially a lot of this outside space stuff, where you can see like the ship and the Mars and like the moon base and things like that, actually looks surprisingly good. And then towards the end of the movie, when they kind of have to have that heavy VFX shots, it just looks like it was rendered on PS2, like, or first few games on PS2, maybe PS1. Like, it definitely didn't look like it was something awe-inspiring. It looked like very flat, very boring, very dull. And especially for an environment that's supposed to represent hell and the creatures of hell, which is essentially what the story of Doom is, this one completely fell flat and didn't feel like hell, but just felt more like, I don't know, it didn't feel good. It didn't sit with me well at all throughout the entire movie. And then to add insult to injury, the way they decide to end this movie is by essentially taking the main character. She makes it out. She's the only one that lives. She travels this interdimensional portal thing, makes it back to Earth. She's like, we have to shut this portal down. There's creatures coming. You guys don't understand. We're going to be super screwed. Like, they killed everyone. Obviously, she's the only person that's traveled this portal and made it back and forth alive, which the scientists don't seem to understand. They just want to be like, oh, we have to make sure like her DNA and like all this other stuff is okay. And then they're like, give her an injection shot to like calm her down. And that's right, obviously, when the creatures are starting to come through the portal. And then it cuts to black and we go to credits. Like, this was the worst ending of a movie ever. Do not waste your time with this movie. If you watch this entire video, just know that you just got the entire thing of the movie. There's no point in watching it. There's no point in wasting your money on watching it. It's a bad movie that I definitely do not recommend. Go watch 2005 Doom. That's my recommendation to you. Don't watch this. Just watch 2005 Doom. It was super underrated. It was a great action horror movie. That's the only one you need to worry about. It's got The Rock in it. It's got Carl Urban. Got Rosamund Pike. What else do you need? It's perfect as it is. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great action movie. Go watch that. don't watch this. But if you have, unfortunately, seen Doom Annihilation, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did you actually like it? Which, God, I hope you didn't. Or did you think that it was really terrible, like myself? Make sure you let me know down below. Other than that, those are my thoughts on Doom Annihilation. I really don't want to talk about this movie anymore. The hour and a half that whatever it was, runtime was enough. Making this video was enough. I'm done with it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.